we're in severe imbalance with the planet. And there is one main cause. It's called animal agriculture. Now, this main cause is the big cow in the middle of the living room of the environmentalists. If you look very closely, the environmentalists are all talking about carbon dioxide as the big problem. No one mentions animal agriculture. Now, there are reasons for that are actually stated, which is we do not want to go against the animal dairy industry. That's what the reasons are. So when we're willing to sacrifice the planet, the environmentalists and everybody else, the Al Gores out there, and what's the myth? The myth is popped by the main researcher in this whole thing. James Hansen is his name. He's the grandfather of really global warming research. And he put it very bluntly. Basically, at best, carbon dioxide is 9% of the problem. That's at best. But what he also says is the areas that make carbon dioxide, which is, yes, obviously animal agriculture, but also different kinds of things that are put out in the environment, different industries and so forth. Basically, they also put out aerosols. And aerosols are global cooling gases. So he's basically saying it's a zero effect. Pretty dramatic. Pretty dramatic. Now, that being said, the whole thing looks a little weird because we're worrying about Prius cars and doing this. The fact is, you can do all your improvements with electricity, this and this, you're not going to make much difference because carbon dioxide isn't really the big problem. The big problem is methane. Methane counts for about 50% of the global warming, at least 25 times more potent a global warmer than carbon dioxide. Now what's really important here, is carbon dioxide takes between 100 and 10,000 years to get out of the atmosphere. Now the research varies. Doesn't matter. Let's take 100. It's like, we got to stop it now, not 100 years from now. So that's one thing. Methane takes 9 to 15 years to get out. That means if everyone went vegan now, we'd have the opportunity to grind this to a halt almost immediately. Now, along with the methane issue, which is 85% from the cows burping and farting, okay? But there's a lot of cows on the planet, okay? The cows take up 70% of the arable land, that means agricultural land, and 30% of the land mass that's being used on the planet. That's huge. The excretion of the cows is 130 times more than the human excretion on the planet. The cows produce 1 billion pounds of manure a year in the United States. That manure gives off not only methane, but really nitrous oxide, which is about 300 times more global warming potential than carbon dioxide. 300 times. I didn't say 1 or 2, 300 times. We're going to add one more. It's called ammonia. And ammonia is really given off a lot by the global, by the manure and also by the lagoons. Ammonia really has to do a little bit more with what I'm going to call it acid rain. But they all work together to toxify the planet. So when you start to kind of put together, it gets very clear that the cow, is the elephant in the living room of the environmentalists. And it's so amazing to hear everybody talking about carbon dioxide when it's such a minimal part and no one's talking about the main cause is something that can make a difference immediately. So this is a major contradiction, but we understand there are politics to this. And the UN report by this man named Pachuri you know, because the long shadow of the meat industry speaks very specifically to the fact that the animal agriculture is the main cause. Okay, that's the key thing we have to get. It's the main cause. He got really burned when he gave this report because people don't want to hear the truth. Please, as Winston Churchill said, you know, the truth is something you stumble over in time. But we managed to get up and brush ourselves off and keep going on our merry way. Our merry delusional way. Okay. Trouble is, it ain't so merry anymore. What we're looking at is somewhere between 1 or 2 years at the more dire estimates, and as King Charles says, 100 months, 10 years. So it's a very short thing, and this is why we're out there doing these fasts around the country to help people go vegan. And what we saw at Awg, which is really great, is 90% of the people, I mean, these are not vegan people, this is all new to them, after the fast, they're able, because in the fast you lose your cellular membrane for meat and dairy. Remember, dairy has casomorphins, which are 1/10 as strong as morphine. So it really is addicting. So the casomorphins, you lose. Your cell memory goes away, so it's really easy to go vegan. And that's really important. It's really important. So what we like is the whole idea that everybody's really ready to go vegan, you know, after this. So that's why we're doing these fasts, and we're doing them. The next one will be in Portland. And then in the end of August. And then we're looking at New York, Boston, and Toronto, and then the cycle of LA, Portland, and Vancouver. So we hope really not only to get a number of people to go vegan, of course, but to make enough noise about this that people are actually willing to look at the elephant in the living room, the bull, or the BS in the living room. So we gotta keep that in mind, because that's really what we're talking about. And everybody's life is at stake on the planet. We got to understand what we're talking about. We're not talking about, we're just talking about, are we willing to go out of our comfort zone of our economic needs, which is for just a few people, right, to do this. So we have to kind of look at this. Now we have to look at the fact that since 1950, the meat eating in the United States has increased 5 times over. The average person in the U.S. eats 230 pounds of meat. Africa gets 30 pounds of meat a year. The Chinese have increased, and the average is pretty much around the world is 90 pounds. And China's increased 15 times. But what's the impact of that? In that impact, China has become a grain importer rather than an exporter. You kind of look around and say, well, how does that happen? Well, what happens is very simple, is that the grain to feed 100 cows is enough to feed 2,000 people. So there is something like 2 billion tons of grain that are produced each year. Okay. And 700 million of those go to feed the cows. That's a huge amount. Humans get a lot less than that, you know, maybe 10–20%. So what we're looking at, more like 10%. So what we're looking at is a grain drain that's going on. Now, when you understand the math of that, we're going to extend it. Okay, we've made the point very clearly that the main cause of global warming is methane. And I'm going to add one more point, that since the pre-industrial revolution, carbon dioxide has only increased 37%, and methane has increased 150%.